Back in 2017, Horizon Zero Dawn came out to critical acclaim, bringing us an open world where we were fighting mechanical dinosaurs and other beasts with primitive weapons like a spear and a bow, but with a gameplay loop that focused around targeting weak points and blowing off components to get our upgrades. Fast forward 5 years later, and here we are on the cusp of the sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, and today I'm going to bring you my review. So big thanks to PlayStation for a review code of the game. All the footage that is captured is using the performance mode on the PS5, and this was without the day one patch. So to jump into it, if I had to sum up my experience with Forbidden West in one word, it would have to be variety. And not just like, oh, you know, there's lots to do in the world. Just the sheer variety and approach to almost all of the activities have been greatly expanded upon from the first game. I think one of the best examples is the more mundane stuff like the tall necks. When I think about the tall necks from the first game, to me they were a checklist item. They were like towers in Assassin's Creed. I'd want to find the tall necks, get up top, unveil the map, and then that was it. I never thought about them again. Whereas in the sequel, the approach to the tall necks is incredibly different across all of them. I had one tall neck where there was a decrepit village I could have climbed up to find a way on top of its head, and instead I just found the tallest mountaintop nearby and floated all the way down to get it. There was another tall neck that was out in the desert, and there was no way to get on top of its head, so I had to use nearby ballistas to shoot it and rope it on down and fight off machines that would attack in between. And it's little things like that that I think really kind of exemplify what I'm talking about when I say variety. Even the mundane activities have been greatly expanded upon in this game so that everything feels like a new experience. It doesn't ever feel like you're just going down a checklist. I think another good example are the cauldrons. In the first game, I think the cauldrons were kind of samey after a while, and that wasn't really the case here. I had one cauldron that was almost completely underwater and involved manipulation of either rising or lowering the water level so that I could move objects around the level and manipulate them to get into areas so that I could climb up and, you know, basically solve the puzzle of exploration for that zone. But it didn't really stop there. You know, moving on from there, there was biome diversity, there was more combat diversity, monster diversity. And all in all, it was just an incredibly enjoyable experience throughout. So let's jump in. I already mentioned biome diversity, but let's dive more into that because I think they really did a good job of mixing things up in the game. I think the first game, for the most part, was you know, pretty samey to an extent. You know, you had your forests or you had your more like rocky plain type areas. And here, our opening area is kind of like your standard, you know, little bit rocky early area, very similar to the first game, and then it rapidly expands out. And we have large sprawling grass plains, we have sandy deserts, we have snowy mountain peaks, we have lush forests, we have an island environment. I mean, honestly, the only earthen biome I don't think this game has is like a molten lava region, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I suppose we could go into a volcano. That's beyond the point. Let's take some time to talk about combat, though, because those of you that follow me know I'm a very big fan of gameplay. More than anything, you know, more than graphics or story or anything else, whether or not a game has engaging gameplay determines whether or not I stay interested in it. And in that regard, they have made some really big improvements. Probably my favorite improvements over the original. So on top of new weapons, you know, we have a bunch of different new weapons. My personal favorite being the spike thrower. I'll let y'all discover some of the other ones on your own. But we now have weapon techniques. So with the spike thrower, I have 2 unlocked: propelled spike as well as splitting spike. And these are going to really change up how I play with the weapon. So normally I could just take the spike thrower, I can charge it on up, toss it on into the target, you know, and it's going to do good damage. That's an explosive spike. So, you know, it does that. But with propelled spike, boom, just yeet it out like an explosive bomb at the target. So there's some really fun stuff that you can play with. Propelled spike being one of my favorites because it's just like destruction. It's like throwing out a missile. But to take a look at some of this stuff here, going on over to the skill tree, you can see we now have 6 dedicated skill trees as opposed to the 4 we had in the original, if you include the Frozen Wild skill tree. And each of these are going to expand upon a particular playstyle. So the warrior tree has stuff for the warrior bow, which is the close range bow. So, you know, stuff like burst fire, over here stuff like spread shot. But we also have a bunch of skills here that are going to expand upon our melee combos. So we have the jump off aerial slash. Right here we have resonator blast. This is actually really cool. You build up energy with your spear and then basically like put this energy ball on the target, which leaves a sweet spot that you can shoot to then blow it up and do extra damage. We have a combo for breaking block. Down here we have an ability to connect even faster with our enemies by chaining and holding R1. We have stuff that's good for AoE. We have stuff that's just, high intensity melee combo damage. So we've seen a very, very big enhancement on a lot of aspects of just gameplay and combat here. So just to go through them briefly, I'm not going to go in depth into every tree because this isn't that kind of video, but as I mentioned, the warrior tree is all about melee and warrior bow. Trapper tree is going to help the rope caster, trip caster, elemental build up in some cases, manual traps. The hunter tree is all about the hunter bow as well as the bolt blaster. Our survival tree has perks related to being at low health, so take less damage, deal more damage at low health, as well as some gathering type stuff. Infiltrator is all about stealth and the predator bow, which is like the long range sniper bow. And then the machine master tree has perks surrounding boosting up machines and their damage and their health when you've overridden them, in addition to skills surrounding the spike thrower. Now, we don't only have weapon techniques, we also have the addition of an ultimate in the form of Valor Surge. Now, Valor Surge is super cool because there's a different Valor Surge for each tree, in some cases multiple Valor Surges, and these are going to allow you to do some insane damage. I played most of the game with Ranged Master, effectively 100% weapon damage, 10% health recover per hit, extra weapon technique, extra stamina regen. So this just allowed me to just straight go off with my bow and just tear stuff apart. If you're a very melee focused person and you want to, beat stuff to death, melee might just straight boost your melee damage, boost the spear energy build up so you can do those resonating blasts even faster. If you like doing traps, you have trap specialist over here, or you have elemental fury doing your elemental build up to get those combos off even faster. And so this adds an extra layer of depth on top of the weapon techniques to just really kind of pull the combat loop together in my experience. Now with the stamina and valor in particular, I feel these are two things that are better shown than explained. So looking down at the bottom right, you can see a purple bar and a yellow bar. The yellow bar is going to be our stamina, and as we use our weapon skill, you can see that bar is going to go down slightly. Now that's because weapon notch is it's a very cheap move to use. If I was to use something like the knockdown shot, that's going to use a little bit more. See, doing those knockdown arrows, it's going to use up a bigger chunk of stamina, but your stamina is just going to regenerate over time. You don't got to do anything special, just as long as you're playing the game, in combat, out of combat, doesn't matter. You're going to be able to get that back up. So just waiting for the third shot to knock down Ugly here. Now your Valor, on the other hand, your Valor is also popped from this menu. Whichever Valor you have equipped, you can only have one equipped at a time. You actually get iframes when you first turn it on, but your Valor is going to decimate. Like, your Valor basically just ends the lives of whatever you're fighting, or it makes you like super invincible. There's some Valors that are all about just making you incredibly potent, hard to kill, super tanky. I just happen to like Valor that allows me to explode this thing's face for thousands of damage. Right in the gooch! And he's dead. It probably got a little bit loud there, but, I think that was kind of the point, is showing what the Valor can do. Now, as for building Valor back up, where stamina is going to go up over time, Valor is built up from playing smart. What I mean by this is doing things like hitting components, hitting weak spots. All of those are going to give you Valor. So you can see weak spot hit, component removed, got some Valor. If I try to snipe off that, I got more Valor. Try to snipe off that, more Valor. Once you get the kill, you'll get some Valor. And so it's not like it's this super rare thing, like, it's like, it'll be at least, another hour before I can execute my Valor move in combat. Like, it's pretty easy to build it back up. I mean, one more component probably, and we can pop it again. Yeah, there we go. But it does generate, like I said, it's a combat loop, you're going through, and you're basically doing what you did in the first game with using your concentration to slow time and snipe weak points. But by doing that now, you're being rewarded. You get rewarded for playing smart and for hitting those weak points. And then you have, of course, your weapon skills, which just add more depth to the combat. And all in all, it just comes together and makes a very satisfying system, in my opinion. So I also wanted to take some time to show off the melee combat, because, as I mentioned, that's been changed up a good bit. Oh god, where do you come from? And of course, you don't have to go in and just do pure melee. If I wanted, I could just, you know, do stuff like that, like get off of your charger. Get rid of that. I don't like you. Last thing I need is that thing running at me.
This outpost.
Alarm! Alarm!
There is no parry or anything, just because I'm sure a couple people are going to be like, well, what about parries? But no. That when I start glowing blue there. That little blue glow you get, that's the resonator, which is really cool. Yeah, so compared to the first game, melee combat slaps now. So let's take some time to talk about the overall story and world building, and I'm not going to go too in-depth into the story because that's obviously spoiler territory and it's something you should learn about and explore on your own, but I will say that the story this time around is really good. Personally, I think it blows away the story of the first. Some really compelling plot lines, really fun side quests. In particular, I mean, just the main story, man. Even working all the way up towards the end of the game, there were a lot of things that I was still just like, you know, how does this resolve? I need to know, you know, I need to know the outcome here. And I think they did a good job. Towards the end, everything was resolved. You know, you didn't have any loose ends or things they forgot about, which is always appreciated. So overall, I think they did a good job with the main story. Beyond that, other things that we have to do in the world include side quests and errands. Now, there's obviously a lot of different stuff to do in the world. Taking like a brief look at the map, you know, you have like vista points, you have relic ruins, you have cave dives, you have all sorts of stuff. But talking more stuff involving narrative. So your side quests are actually pretty deep. The side quests are usually pretty involved. You know, they want you to, in a sense, kind of make a connection with the character you're doing the side quest for. And then outside of that, we also have errands. Now, errands are a little bit more like, hey, I need you to go fetch this type thing. But some of them actually lead to some pretty crazy rewards. So all in all, I think they did a really good job with the world building and the story in general here. So moving on from there, though, let's talk a little bit about sound design briefly. Now, you know, obviously I'm trying a new style here where I have most of the audio cut out from the game when we're talking about sound. So just for a little bit, I'm going to mute the mic, kick the sound on and turn it all the way up and just kind of walk around the town and let you hear the sounds of the environment.
How about a blast zone?
Boredom. Nothing but
Yeah, you! What do you think?
I don't like
Price for it?
Why am I the one? Oh, on another note.
Don't blow your
Tasty and filling. Guaranteed. Oh, this'll really boil their broth. I'll add a sprinkle of chili to their desserts. How perverse.
So overall, I think sound design in the game was pretty good. You know, for the most part, I think voice acting was well done. I think just general, you know, sounds in the town, sounds in combat, I think that was all really well done here. So I have no complaints. I know talking to some other friends that are reviewing, I've had some people say that they had issues where characters weren't making eye contact during conversations, but I haven't personally noticed that. But, you know, did want to put that out there just so, you know, if I heard about an issue, I want to be transparent about that issue. Now, I've been giving this game a lot of praise, but I do want to talk about the things that I thought were negative. And to be honest, there weren't a lot of them, but there was one that stood out in my experience, and that was the snappiness of the climbing. Now, to be clear, you don't have free climb like you would in, say, Assassin's Creed or something. You can't just scale any surface. And the game actually shows this pretty well. When we pop my focus, you can see like little red lines over here, these little red dots that you're seeing pop up. That means you can't scale that surface. Whereas over here, we have these little yellow lines, and that means like, hey, that is scalable. There's a route you can climb. So if I wanted to get up that, I couldn't just go straight up that. But instead, if I started off over here, you can see that Aloy is just going to follow this path. Now, that's fine. You know, I don't care that the path is laid out like that when you use your focus, but my problem in particular was with the snappiness of certain actions. And I guess a good way to think about it is when I was climbing around, I noticed that there were a lot of times, more specifically in some of the like cauldron dungeon type areas, where I would try to make a jump and Aloy just would not connect with the ledge. Now, some of that might just be user error. I know I tend to be, you know, very impatient in games, and I'm like, go, 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 go. So it might just be that if I'd slowed down, I would have hit those ledges. But there were quite a few times where I tried to make a jump, and it looked like I had to make a jump, and instead Aloy just did like a free jump as opposed to a jump to connect with the ledge. And that was definitely something that got under my skin. In terms of bugs, there were a couple that I encountered, the first being a black screen load. Now, this tend to happen between zones or towns, and what would happen was the screen would briefly flash black, and I'm just kind of simulating it here, but it happens consistently throughout the Let's Play and was definitely really jarring. I've been told that this should be resolved by the day one patch on PS5, and they're hoping to have it resolved for PS4, but they said PS4 may still occasionally receive these loads. Besides that, I had two other bugs, one involving the upgrade in inventory, which was kind of annoying. You know, taking the warrior bow, for example, you can see it has knockdown power, and then if I level it up, it would get component tear. And when I ended up leveling up my weapon, I didn't get the perk that was stated on that weapon. I had something else pop up. In addition to that, I also had a bug where the apex heart from one of the new monsters wasn't dropping. So as you can imagine, that was super irritating. But all this stuff has been passed on over to Sony as well. So the devs are aware of it, and hopefully this is stuff that gets patched. So to sum it all up, I'm sure a lot of people want to know what my final score is, and I do not say this lightly when I'm giving this game a 10 out of 10. I think the only other game I've given that to on my channel was Sekiro, and as many of you know, that is my favorite FromSoft game to date. Elden Ring might end up topping that, but you know, as of now, I haven't had a chance to go through and play Elden Ring, so that was not a basis of this comparison at all. But I mean, honestly, there were very minor issues in my playthrough of this game. I had a complete blast. If we were to go over here, take a look at Notebook, as you can see, almost 49 and a half hours played. So, you know, I did not rush my way through this game. I wasn't just trying to beat it. Like, I had a good time, and you'll definitely see that in the Let's Play. I mean, there are a number of episodes that are, you know, hour-long episode, 45-minute long episode. There's a couple that are just free roam because I didn't want to stop exploring. And this is definitely the most enjoyable PlayStation experience that I think I've had since Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, there was just so much to do in this world, and none of it felt like busy work. I just, you know, I wanted to keep playing. And there were even times where I would get done recording, and then I would turn off the PS5, bring it upstairs to the bedroom, and be like, all right, time to farm these monster parts because I want to upgrade my weapon. Like, I had an absolute blast playing this game. So if you were a fan of the first game, you will not be disappointed at all with the sequel. This is probably one of the better things that's come out of PlayStation. I think this is way up there, and honestly, it's going to be a strong contender for Game of the Year. I mean, personally, I'm more excited for Elden Ring. I didn't even go into this that excited. I mean, I liked the original, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm sure it'll be fun. And it blew me away how much I ended up enjoying this as a sequel. So definitely something to really look forward to if you were a fan of the original. But either way, that's going to wrap things up for me. We have the Let's Play starting in a couple days. There is going to be a lot of episodes as well, because I'm trying to get that out before the Elden Ring content starts flowing. And I think it's a 50 episode Let's Play. So prepare thy inboxes. But that wraps it up for me. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I hope y'all enjoy the game.